Okay, so let's commence. Thanks very much for joining us this morning, and welcome again to another edition of the Prop Data webinar series. This is our fourth webinar that we've been doing over the last few months. Just for those who are joining for the first time, just a bit of background about Prop Data and the webinar series and our whole idea behind it. We started this series just for ongoing community building and knowledge sharing, and obviously for the education of the real estate professional community at large. As this might be your first webinar, just a bit of history about Prop Data. We're a specialist online marketing and software development company specializing in the real estate and prop tech community and sector. We've been established and running since around 1999, so almost 20 years. And we've helped hundreds of leading real estate companies establish a presence and launch and grow their businesses online. You can always visit our website at propdata.net to find out a bit more information about who we are and the types of products and services that we offer. There's a wealth of information that you can glean from our website. Again, just a bit more about the reason behind these webinars. We want to empower you with the webinar topics and information that we cover. They're very real estate focused and across niche subjects within the real estate sector. And they've been handpicked to obviously cover certain aspects, more specifically around online marketing and prop tech solutions that can obviously help you grow your business and generate more leads at the end of the day. Again, our emphasis is around upskilling and educating you, the industry professional. Many of you would have been reading our sort of long-standing knowledge posts, which we pack full of useful information. We're very much about educating and upskilling our client base and the industry at large. And we just thought that these more interactive webinar series would be a bit more engaging in terms of the materials that we do cover and the topics that we cover. Just a bit more about me. I'm Mark Buttress, the CEO. I've been running the business now for just over 5 years. I've got a sort of long history in real estate in South Africa, in particular prop tech and solutioning. And I've been engaged with Prop Data, like I said, for the last 5 years, looking to grow the business there, evolve our product offering, and moving into slightly different spaces in terms of the software solution side of things. I've got a panelist with me, Kate Coleman, today. She's our paid media specialist. Morning, Kate. How are you doing?
Morning. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Great.
No problem. Thanks for taking time out of your day to join us. As I said, Kate's our paid media specialist. She's an expert in Google Ads, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter advertising. She's got years of experience of running campaigns on these platforms. With her help, her clients have been able to reach new audiences and enhance their e-commerce businesses. Today we'll be discussing with Kate how to use remarketing as a specific type of paid online marketing to benefit your agency or your brokerage. Obviously, especially during lockdown, these sorts of concepts and ideas become that more sort of pertinent. Just a reminder, we'll be running our Q&A. So that's the Q&A session that we have at the end of the webinar. So you will see the Q&A little icon in the bottom of your Zoom software. So please post questions there. You're also able to upvote those questions, and we will be sort of reviewing. If there's a lot of them, we'll be reviewing the most upvoted Q&A questions, and hopefully being able to give you a bit more insight about some of the topics that we cover. Just to cover run through what we covered in our last webinar, for those of you who missed it. It was a tough one last month for the real estate industry. Obviously, it's still tough out there. But last month we were in full lockdown. The deeds office and many businesses were closed, with a lot of people working from home, and a lot of your clients very much homebound. Our topics from last month were really around aiming at empowering you to overcome your lockdown challenges. If you haven't or weren't exposed to that webinar, you can navigate to our webinars page on our website, and you can actually review that webinar live by viewing the video. So we did record it. Just some of the topics we covered. We learned about the avenues for financial relief, and we gave you some examples of some of the things you can be doing to obtain financial relief through the period. We talked extensively about remote working and some of the platforms that enable that. We also talked extensively about some of the communication platforms for your team to start leveraging. Obviously becomes very important when you're not together in the office. We also covered management tools, tasking tools, just to help you and your team keep on track with what you need to do. We talked specifically about listing your properties remotely and some of the things you need to look out for doing that, and also showcasing your properties remotely. And we covered some nice tools around video and virtual tour tools. And we gave a bunch of examples of platforms that you could start to leverage there. We finished off by just talking about managing documentation online and some of the tools you can get sort of e-signatures with. Again, all of these platforms in the cloud, we very much promote them as part of a PropTech ecosystem. So again, if you weren't able to join that webinar, please go to our website and you can review it on demand. So everything applies to those concepts. Sorry, we're still very much in lockdown. Although we've got the likes of the deeds offices going back and some of the municipalities now kicking in. A lot of these things are still needing to be used. So I think there's a lot of value in that webinar, and you can go and review and listen to the various topics that we covered. If we have a look at the agenda for today, as we mentioned, it's very much around remarketing as a specific topic, or a subtopic of paid campaign marketing. So right now things are looking a bit more sort of rosy for the local property market. As I said, the deeds offices are starting to open up, which hopefully should start to release some cash flow for many of you as real estate brokers and agencies. You're obviously probably starting to see some more movement with property transfers as a result. I believe the conveyances are starting to kick in as well. So, there should be a lot more activity starting to happen around transfers. Municipality offices are starting to open up. So things like rates clearance certificates should start to come to fruition now as well. So there is some dawn on the horizon. So hopefully a lot of you are starting to see that. And you're starting to feel a bit more comfortable about where things are heading in terms of the direction of this pandemic and what it means to your businesses. Yeah, so I think that the key thing to identify is that although there's a lot of this kind of stuff happening, there's still obstacles that you're facing. Your potential clients are still pretty much bunkered down at home, and you're still needing to sort of connect with them remotely. You need to be where they are, which is basically online at the moment. And this is why we've decided to focus on remarketing as a concept, and specifically talk about remarketing on Google and Facebook and Instagram as platforms. So let's just cover basically the key topics that we'll be running through today. So we're going to be defining remarketing and show you the benefits that it potentially has for your business. We'll also go through the types of remarketing. So we're going to be covering remarketing on Google Ads and as well as on Facebook and Instagram. And basically after running through those concepts, you should be able to understand a bit more about what remarketing, what it means for your business and how it works on each of these platforms, what ad types you can use for remarketing, what a remarketing campaign specifically looks like, and how to approach the high-level aspects of setting up a remarketing campaign on these platforms. We'll also give you some details on our Facebook and Instagram ads promo. We're going to be running a promo. For those of you who joined the webinar series before, you'll know that we run a promo after each one of these. Obviously, these are services that PropData specializes in. So, if you're not comfortable setting these campaigns up for yourself, then obviously PropData, along with the likes of Kate and some other team members, are very versed in this subject. And, we can certainly look to help you with those service offerings. We are running a poll as well. So I've launched the poll service. and you should be able to start voting on that poll now. The poll question that we're asking today is, what's your biggest online marketing challenge? Okay, and there's a couple of options there which you can select from. We're wanting the most, or the biggest challenge that you're covering today, so facing today. So you'll be able to select one of the options. Again, we'll look at those poll results at the end of the webinar, and we'll use that in tandem with the Q&A session to hopefully discuss and give you more insight into some of the concepts that we're discussing today. Okay, so yeah, if you can all start to use the poll, that would be great, and we can share those results at the end of the webinar session. So let's get into it. Let's start talking about what is remarketing. So if it's a new topic for you, here's basically what it means. It's roughly a strategy where you can create targeted adverts for those who have previously visited your brand website. Okay, so I think the key there is just to understand that this is triggered off of a brand website that you may have for your agency. So I'm pretty sure most of you will have your own brand website exposure, and these ads are triggered off of traffic or visitors that have previously visited your website. Once a user has visited your website, these ads can then be triggered to follow them as they surf various online platforms. And we're speaking predominantly around Google-orientated platforms, as well as the Facebook and Instagram platforms. Just to remember, an online audience can be indecisive, distracted, and on the hunt for a bargain. So remarketing just gives you an opportunity to reach out to them again. Not with any adverts either. So it's not just a case of blanket servicing them ads because they visited your site once. We want to make those as personalized as possible. So this can be an advert showcasing a specific property for sale or to rent, specific services you may be offering, specific areas of expertise, particularly neighborhood areas that you specialize in, as well as career opportunities and much, much more. Kate, I don't know if you can come in here. We were discussing this just prior to the webinar, and we're going to be covering it a bit later again, but just the emphasis point around personalization when it comes to remarketing, and just some of your thoughts on how important personalization is when it comes to tailoring these ads.
100%. The power of remarketing really comes in when you really understand how your consumers engage with your brand and along the whole consumer journey. You can create different audiences based on where they are in the consumer journey, and then you talk to them while they're at that point. Having a generalized message that you send to everyone. We've all been there. We've all been to a site where, you know, we've been there once, or we've gone to a certain page and we get a blanket generic ad that doesn't mean much to us. Or even worse, we go somewhere, we actually convert or inquire, and then we still get the ads.
Yeah.
So it's always about making sure that your lists are tailored to the people you want to talk to, and so is your creative and your messaging.
Great. So I think, you know, one thing I'd like to add to that, Kate, and, you know, maybe this is another topic for another webinar, but being able to ensure that those lists are accurate and talking to the right type of audience. This is really where something like a CRM solution comes in to the fold, because, you know, with a CRM solution connected to your ads, you're able to ensure that the lists that you're building out are very much tailored for where that particular consumer is in their life cycle in terms of your sales funnel. You know, just thinking out loud. So if someone's at the sort of awareness stage of your funnel in your contact CRM database, you don't want to be then serving them more personalized stuff that might be more relevant at the bottom of the funnel. So, you know, these kinds of things make a hell of a lot of difference when you look at the conversion and the ROI that some of these ad campaigns can actually start to bring to fruition.
Definitely. It makes it a lot more tailored, a lot more personalized. And at the end of the day, it's going to make it a lot more likely that a user is going to come back to your site and actually end up using the services.
100%. So I think the other emphasis point is that, I mean, you can still run these campaigns without necessarily a connected CRM. You just run the risk of them not being as personalized or tailored as they potentially can be. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide and just a bit more detail about how remarketing actually works. Okay, so to understand how remarketing works, it's good to think about window shopping. When someone lands on your website, they've been attracted to what your website offers. As with window shopping, they might take the time to look, but not invest or actually inquire. This is actually when obviously remarketing comes in. So when a potential client visits your website, they're tagged with a special cookie, which dropped in their browser. So it's a small piece of data that is invisible to them, but sits in their browser file stream. This cookie is then used to remarket to those prior website visitors. And basically that piece of code or that file triggers the adverts on the various platforms when those users obviously surf those particular platforms. So things like Google search, Google display, social media sites, even mobile native smartphone applications, which you download onto your smartphone, as well as some of the bigger video streaming sites as well. Kate, I don't know if you've got any more insight just generally about how this works, other than what the infographic is depicting here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it's the best description you can give at that point, but it's also, I think, important to understand that, especially now where we are with technology is, and I mean, we all know this, the consumer journey is not a linear pattern. So it's also about thinking like how people come into your site, maybe the first touch that they come to your site, if they come via mobile or desktop, or like there's so many different aspects, like what channels they come to your site through, and then where you want to talk to these people, on what platforms, where they're going to be, that's going to get their attention the most. So there are quite a few things taken into consideration, but this is just the best way to understand it, because once people go to your site, you target them again once they're browsing, or they may be doing research on your competitors or whatever it is.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, hopefully that gives a bit more insight to our viewers around just the very high level concept of remarketing and how it works. As you say, there's a lot of other factors to consider when you're actually planning out a remarketing campaign. You've talked about what channels they come to the website from, what version of the website they're viewing, whether it's on Mobi or via an app or whatever it might be. So, you then need to consider all these factors to further tailor out the potential of what a remarketing campaign can actually look like. And that's where I suppose, Kate, your experience comes into the fold. You've been involved with a lot of these types of campaigns. So I suppose you've learned a lot around what works and what doesn't work based on the complexities around that non-linear user journey.
100%. And different aspects will work for different people in different industries with different objectives at the end of the day. Okay. It's about figuring out what works for you.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's just cover some high-level benefits of remarketing then. So it helps you recapture your audience. As I've mentioned before, if you invested time, money, and effort to attract website visitors, a lot of you are doing that through email campaigns, through content and search marketing, etc. Once these visitors actually engage with your website, remarketing then gives them a nudge to return back to your website if you didn't manage to convert them, on their first visit. It reminds them of your listings and of your service value, and obviously just generally about how you can offer value to them as a brokerage or as an agency. With remarketing, you can also convert more effectively with personalized adverts. So we've already emphasized that quite extensively. That cookie that your website users are tagged with has a lot of information about the pages they were on, they visited, and it keeps a record of the exact journey that they've taken through your website. So that becomes really useful. So for example, if someone visits your website and they are browsing properties for sale in Cape Town or a specific suburb in Cape Town, what you can then use is that cookie information will hold those page URLs, and then you can start to tailor your remarketing campaign, serving them listings in that specific area, for example. So, that's a highly tailored ad, and it will obviously have a greater effect in terms of reconverting people. The idea there is that if you're a brokerage that lists property in multiple areas, but your user that browsed only is looking at property in a specific area, you don't, for example, in the case of our example, don't want to start serving them ads that are for properties in Johannesburg, for example. So, all of that becomes part of the tailoring and the personalization aspect. With remarketing your website, visitors will see ads that they surf online. Okay. Even if you don't immediately click, if they don't immediately click on your advert, they may still remain present. So this is a great brand awareness boosting sort of exercise. You know, I'm sure you've all seen on classified sites, if you've been on specific holiday travel websites previously, you just see that brand, Flight Center or whatever it might be, just in the background. And it's just that persistent message, which is obviously giving you that brand awareness kick that you may need. It keeps your brand top of mind and emphasizes you as the authority within that space. So, you know, if they've been browsing a bunch of different property websites, but your brand is now present as they're surfing other platforms, you know, that comes across as you being the authority in the real estate space. Remarketing also saves your agency some money. Well, it can do. Can be extremely cost effective, okay, if correctly set up and personalized and targeted correctly. So when someone clicks on your ad, you only pay once someone clicks on that particular ad. And when they do, they generally are more qualified lead. So it's more easily you know, likely to convert that lead once they actually come back to your website. Kate, maybe you can give us a bit of insight around, you know, just the cost effectiveness of these ads and how they, you know, if they're correctly tailored, how conversion and ROI can really shoot up for a particular company.
Yeah, I think what's important to understand here in terms of your budgets and how you use your budget is you're now talking to people that have already shown interest in your brand and in your service. So you're no longer in the brand awareness phase, but you're now talking to people who are a lot more tailored and you're offering them a tailored message. So their likelihood of converting is automatically a lot higher. So it just means that your budget's being spent in a higher quality audience pool. Yeah, it just increases your chances of the conversion and then lowers your overall, it should lower your overall cost per lead.
Fair enough. Okay, and the last point there is that obviously the remarketing strategy can reach people across different advert types and platforms. So we're going to be talking about Google and Facebook, obviously hugely utilized platforms globally. And just online, it allows you to engage with online audiences that just have a diverse web browsing experience. Remarketing helps you connect with them in online spaces that they spend a lot of time in, which is key, especially now with lockdown in effect. So we'll be looking at remarketing on Google and its partner websites, and we'll also be showing you about how to remarket specifically on Facebook and Instagram. For those of you who don't know, Facebook and Instagram are sort of fairly one entity. You know, overall, remarketing has a lot of benefits for your business. I think we've kind of highlighted that already. And I think the emphasis point there is that it just pays to be persistent with your marketing messages. And remarketing allows you to achieve that in a very highly tailored and personalized way. Okay, so that's just a bit of highlight around the benefits of remarketing. We're going to jump into talking specifically about remarketing on the platforms we've highlighted, and the ones we're going to again cover today are the Google platform and the Facebook/Instagram platform. So I think the point here is that if we're looking at Google as an initial platform, you know, Google's always in your hands. I think we all appreciate that. It dominates the web. Your adverts can appear in all kinds of spaces. You can remarket across Google's display and search networks. We just want to talk to you more specifically about the difference between Google Display as well as Google Search. Okay, the Google Display Network is a group of more than 2 million websites, video sites, and applications, smart applications that is, where your ads can appear. It includes sites like YouTube, Blogger, as well as Gmail. Okay, so it's a group of affiliated sites as well as Google's infrastructure where your visual ads can display, and you can see on the slide deck there a type of Google Display ad, and that's from the news site IOL. On the other hand, the Google Search Network includes the Google Search results pages. It also includes Google sites like Maps and Shopping, and search sites that partner with Google to show your ads. Using Google Ads remarketing, you'll enjoy focused advertising, a large scale of reach, obviously with the number of users utilizing these platforms, you just got to think of the Google search engine or Google Maps, for example, and you understand the scale of potentially the audience that you can reach. It can be very affordably done, and the ability to keep track of how your adverts are performing. Remarketing campaigns also are simple to create on those specific networks. Kate, maybe you can just talk a bit to about scale and reach, when it comes to the search network, and how effective they can actually be.
Yeah, I think when it comes to search network, especially when it comes to remarketing, is we need to consider that search is more of an active marketing channel. People actively have to search for the services that you provide. So there's often different strategies we can go into later. But I mean, people are constantly Googling everything. So to have a set of keywords that are tailored to what you offer and are relevant to what the users are looking for, it's about structuring that in a way that makes sure your ad appears in front of the right people and doesn't waste spend, but also is there and you're relevant, and you're available to people who are looking for your services.
We were discussing before the webinar, just I think specifically with Google Display, where to activate a remarketing campaign, you do need some sort of minimum number of visitors to your website per month. Is that correct? Maybe you could just give us a bit of insight about that.
Yes, for all the channels, as a general rule, you need a minimum of 1,000 people that fit the rules of your remarketing list in a 30-day period. So whether you want to target people that be into a specific landing page, an area, or whatever it is, you need to have 1,000 people landing on that URL within a 30-day period to be able to activate the list. Because Google and Facebook, all the channels, they don't want you to be able to individualize people too much and get too much information. So it works on like a bulk list system. But obviously the more people you have in those lists, the more data you can get at a faster rate. So yeah, it's always about managing the size of the list to the accuracy and the quality of the list.
So I assume then maybe you could just give us a bit more insight in, and then we're going to actually look in and run through like a step-by-step procedure of actually setting up one of these campaigns. But I assume you can then start to build that list of people who are visiting those URLs that you're talking about by various processes or other marketing sort of strategies. So I mentioned content and search marketing, bringing more people to your website via content. But I suppose just your general AdWords campaigns can then also bring an influx of visitors to the site, which you can then obviously start to remarket to again once they've actually been to your site.
Definitely. If you look at the general display network, we use interest targeting or topics. That's generally a bit more of a quantity over quality, because a lot of people are seeing your ads. And so it helps with brand awareness, and it helps generate clicks to your site. And the cost per click of these ads are normally quite low, but so is the click-through rate. But if you're looking at populating those remarketing lists, having a display campaign in conjunction with that to help get like that list, the size of the list bigger, faster. It's about understanding, again, that consumer journey from brand awareness to consideration to conversion.
Fair enough. Okay, maybe we could then just run through a very brief setup of one of these on the Google platform. And we're just going to get Kate to run through like a list, literally a bulleted point list. What we will do is we're going to disseminate this slide deck after the webinar, and we'll include that bulleted list that you can review in your own time on the webinar recording. So yeah, Kate, maybe you could just give us a very high level run through of how you would set up one of these campaigns.
Definitely. Yeah, I think we're going to start with the display network. And then from there, even if you're not handling it, it's often nice just to understand how it works and the processes of setting everything up, so that whoever you're dealing with, just having an understanding always helps with these things.
100%.
And before you set up the remarketing list with Google Ads, you need to make sure you have the code snippet for the remarketing on your site or on your app. And this works directly with Google Ads. Another way of doing it is if you have analytics linked on your website and linked up to your Google Ads account, you can actually set up the list within analytics, which gives you a bit more freedom and a bit more options when you are creating audience lists, in terms of being able to break the audience down by age or location, time on site, number of pages viewed. Your options become quite endless. And when you're looking at setting up the list, there's so many ways you can go about it. It's not just about the pages they visit. It's about some of the goals that they've completed, or like I said earlier, the point in the conversion funnel they've gotten to, and then bringing people back to that point in the conversion funnel, even if it's a point of setting up different forms that they fill out at different points. And this all depends on how your website is set up and also what your tracking is like. And a point I mentioned earlier is it's also always very important to make sure that you exclude people who have previously converted. No one likes those ads when you've already bought something or you've already inquired and then you still see the ads following you around.
Okay, so do you actually create an ads account, and is that something you then set up and start to specify a lot of these parameters in?
Yeah, so once you've got your Google Ads account from there, you go and you push the create new campaign button. And then it's quite a seamless process from there. Google does make it like quite a nice step-by-step feature. Because once you've clicked the create new campaign button, you choose your desired goal, whether this is lead generation, brand awareness, driving traffic to websites. It depends on what you're really looking to do at that point in the consumer journey. Once you've chosen this objective, you choose a display network. So it is quite similar to setting up a normal display campaign. You type in your campaign name, you enter your location, the language settings, and your ultimate budget and bid strategy, which that can get quite complex with the different options. I don't think we're going to go into that today. But once you've done that, that's when you can choose your remarketing audiences. So there'll be a box there that says audiences. You click on the section that says people, and then you click remarketing. And this is where you'll see all the various lists that you've created. And you choose who you want to talk to at which point. Yeah, once you've done that, you click save, and that's when you create your ads. And then you submit your campaign to be reviewed by Google.
Okay, great. I think we've also included some links to some support articles that Google supply in one of the slides. So again, you can go and review that sort of step-by-step process along with our bulleted point, just to get a better understanding of how you would go and set one of these campaigns up. We thought it'd be also handy just to run through a search network remarketing campaign, just a high-level structure around setting one of those up as well, Kate. So maybe you could give us a bit more insight there as well.
Yeah, search is a very interesting network to remarket on. As I mentioned previously, when you're looking at display in Facebook, it's a much more passive marketing channel. And there are generally two main, I just want to cover the two main search strategies that people normally consider. Both of them are like setting up normal search campaigns, which I'll run through just now. But it's also about understanding that when you're setting up a search remarketing campaign, it allows you to bid on keywords that maybe are a bit more broad that you wouldn't have bid on before because it would have brought in irrelevant people to your site. But now that you're only talking to people that have already been to your site, you can go a bit broad, and which is also generally cheaper keywords to bid on as well. So it's often got a slightly lower cost per click, but it also helps you manage your budgets. So you can bid more heavily on people that are of a higher quality, that are more likely going to convert. The other strategy is actually to overlay the audience that you've created on top of your existing search campaigns. And once you've done that, you can increase your bid adjustments. So again, it allows you to bid at a higher rate for people who have already been to your site. Yeah, so those are two main strategies. But when you actually go into setting it up with the first one that I mentioned, very similar, you need to make sure that your remarketing code snippets and your remarketing lists are set up. Once you've added the tags to your site, you go in, you log into your Google Ads page. Again, you create a new campaign, you click the search option, and once you go through, you click the audiences you want to target, and then you often add in the keywords and the people you want to talk to at the different points. You can either add the audiences at an overall campaign level, or if you want to go a bit more granular and talk to people at different points, you can add it at an ad group level. And the benefit of doing this is allows you to talk a bit more granularly to different people based on the keywords they've searched as well. And then your ad copy that you write for them is more tailored towards that. Because Google will always reward you for being as relevant as possible based on the keywords and the words you're using in your ads, and then also the landing page you're sending people to. Once those three things all line up, Google will increase your quality score of that campaign. And then the reward for that is they will often lower your cost per click for being of high quality and relevancy to the user.
So Kate, what I'm hearing here is that, it sounds like there's a lot of figuring out that needs to happen with these various options and the various setup requirements. And I suppose, nothing speaks more than experience when it comes to understanding what works and what doesn't. It just sounds very much like your experience is coming through. So whilst people might, be able to go and do this very easily up front, I suppose the key thing to remember is that, you're not necessarily going to get the return without some of the insight around how best to structure these campaigns.
Definitely. The analogy I always use is like having a desk of drawers for your clothing. If you've got all your clothing in the different drawers at different points, you're never going to be able to find the outfit you want. But if you've got your different drawers that have your socks or your jeans or your t-shirts, your smart shirts, it's just about knowing how everything is laid out. And the better laid out it is, the more productive your morning is going to be when you're getting ready.
Fair enough. That's actually a really good analogy.
It always helps.
Cool. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to just finish off there with that search network setup.
No, I think, when it comes to setting up the search, it's very similar to when you're setting up a normal search campaign. And again, Google has made it quite intuitive. They've given you all the steps you need, and it's just about making sure you add that audience level targeting to it, which you'll always see on the left-hand side. There'll be the audience option where you can add it in there.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah, like I said, we'll cover and we'll make these steps available in the slide deck with the webinar. There's a lot of additional sort of help guide links that we've included, which point to some of the Google sort of support documentation around this for those of you who want to play around with this yourself and set up these campaigns. Okay, so we'll move on. Just a reminder, the poll is running. I see a lot of you have voted already, so we'll discuss that in a while. We're going to move on to Facebook and Instagram ads now. Okay, so when you set up your Facebook page for your agency or brokerage, I assume most of you have one of these running already. You really do get access to Facebook's incredible insights and features on their business platform. One of the most exciting is obviously the remarketing capabilities that you then have the ability to start to leverage. Facebook specifically lets you remarket across ad forms like images, like video, instant experience tools like messaging, and they're obviously designed specifically with remarketing in mind. We want to talk about two specific ones with relevance to remarketing on Facebook's platform. The one is dynamic ads. And these can, for example, show relevant listings or services from a catalog that you can create. So that's a catalog within the platform that you can stock. These appear to a targeted audience. Again, very much like Google, you're setting up a target audience that you want to showcase those products or services to, and showcasing the exact properties or services they are specifically searched for, as well as up-to-date pricing and availability on those catalog items. Sponsored messages, which is the other type, lets you send relevant offers, promotions, or updates directly to the people your brokerage or agency is already talking to via Facebook Messenger. So, yeah, Kate, maybe you want to just cover those two elements, just with some with a lens from your side. I know a lot of agencies don't tend to use Facebook Messenger in South Africa, particularly. I know it's heavily used in sort of the US and abroad in Europe. So maybe you could give us some insight about Messenger as well and remarketing.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Messenger within this, Facebook does let you remarket to people that you have been in touch with, and then also to people that have a similar online profile to that as well, so the lookalike audiences. But with the Messenger, as you mentioned, it's not used a lot within South Africa, but I think, especially now when people are looking for instant answers and with what they like instant communication, having that strong touch point with them and then being able to talk to them based on the interactions you've had, and just again, it's a higher value customer that you can talk to with ads, and you can follow them around for a little while longer to make sure you stay top of mind and then come back and they convert.
So I think you need to be, just thinking out aloud here, you need to be fairly careful about using it and how you're using it and who you're talking to, because I suppose at the end of the day, you don't want to appear as abrupt and intrusive with something as direct as instant messaging.
Yeah, I think it's with remarketing, it's always important. It's always a fine balance between staying top of mind and not getting creepy, because people don't want messages following them around being like, we saw that you were looking at this product for this long. Because it is quite easy to get, if you've got enough data coming through, if you've got enough of an audience size, it is quite easy to kind of cross that line into like obtrusive.
Yeah.
So and I think especially with Messenger, it's quite a particular thing that you need to focus on and you need to give a lot of attention to. It's definitely not, like, I wouldn't say would be the starting point for a remarketing campaign.
Okay.
With
dynamic ads is probably more the go-to tool on Facebook for remarketing.
Well, you can also use those remarketing lists for the sponsored messages on the timeline, where you could set up different messaging and different images. So this one, the link click ad, should I say, not the sponsored messages, but dynamic ads would definitely be more of the starting point that you can go with.
Okay. All right. So just the other thing to emphasize, I suppose, is that you can set up these dynamic ads to appear on Facebook as well as Instagram, as well as the audience network. The audience network helps to reach audiences on thousands of high quality apps. So maybe you can give us a bit more insight to what that audience network is actually about.
Yeah, it's a fairly new, when I say fairly new, they released it probably about 3 or 4 years ago. So in digital marketing, not that new anymore, but it's similar to the display network. It's on a range of different sites that Facebook has an agreement with to allow to show their ads. And again, if you choose to show your ads on the audience network, it's all very much a checkbox option when you're setting everything up. If you choose to use the audience network, it does help increase your reach outside of the social media platforms. Once people click on news articles or whatever it is, it does help you reach more people, generally at a lower cost per click as well. Okay.
Something else I thought it would be good to discuss is just Instagram as a platform. And correct me if I'm wrong, but in the past when Prop Data's done a lot of these types of campaigns, we've tended to use Instagram more for a branding exercise rather than a sort of strong lead gen sell campaign. Maybe you can give us some insight to the effectiveness of Instagram. Obviously people using that platform are there to look at or engage with beautiful photography and video as opposed to social happenings. So maybe you could give us a bit more insight around the effectiveness and the differentiation between Facebook and Instagram when it comes to these types of campaigns.
Definitely. I think across industries I've worked on, across objectives, when you're looking at pure conversions that you want to get, Facebook will normally always bring you more conversions at a lower cost per conversion. Instagram does help drive nice clicks and engagement and increase brand awareness. But unless you have the right content, and that is it's mostly the images, because Instagram ads cut off the copy quite early on. So there's not a lot that people can read without having to, show more, which is not ideal. You want to be able to communicate your message without them having to necessarily try too hard to read what you have to say.
Great. So so you kind of along the same lines as my thinking, Instagram from an effectiveness perspective, really a great brand awareness type tool.
Yes, there's definitely a time and place for it. But it's more on the brand awareness side of things. And so then when you're looking at the metrics, it's comparing Instagram to Facebook is never necessarily a fair comparison. You're comparing apples and oranges, even though they're both social media platforms. they should be used for different purposes. And it's about understanding how the different channels, even beyond Facebook and Instagram, play an important role at different points in the consumer journey.
Okay. But I think it's a fair comment to say that Instagram is still very much growing as a platform, particularly within a South African context. So it certainly should come into the fold in terms of considering your strategy when looking at these types of campaigns.
Definitely. I would always recommend assigning a smaller percentage of budget compared to Facebook, but it's definitely something that does play a pivotal role, especially if you've got strong photography and strong images that you can add to the mix and bring into play that will capture people's attention. It's never going to hurt.
Fair enough. Okay. Cool. All right. So what we thought we would do next is actually, again, have Kate talk us through just very high level how you would set up, these ad campaigns, these remarketing campaigns on the Facebook platform. From my understanding, this is all done through Business Manager, Kate, which you get access to, via your Facebook business account.
Yes. And I saw there was actually a question regarding the pixels on the Facebook business page. Especially when you're setting up dynamic ads, this becomes a very important step in the process, because if your pixels aren't installed on your website properly, and this does often go over more into a website developer side of things, but if that's not set up properly, Facebook isn't able to basically draw the information it needs. So you'll see on Facebook, there is a pixel tab that you can go to generate the code. And then you've got the different options on how you want to install it. And again, this will depend on how you have things set up with your development team or with your agency. It's all very variant and dependent there. But
so just something to mention here, with the Facebook website product, we have made provision for this. So Facebook pixels, as well as the Google Analytics codes, can easily be installed from our management system interface. And if you need any further insight on this, for those viewers that are prop data clients, you can just engage with your account manager to that extent. Thanks, Kate.
Yeah. But once you do have that pixel on your website, you can set up the standard events to report on the product IDs that will then draw into your catalog. And then basically that will track what people are viewing, what's been added to cart, if that's part of the purchasing cycle, what they've inquired on, all the rest of it. And setting up a catalog is also one of the options within the Business Manager. And there are a number of ways to do this, but the way we've listed here in terms of relying on the pixel is a much more seamless and integrated way of doing it. The other ways are creating manual data feeds, which becomes very complicated and time consuming. If you got the pixel set up correctly, it automatically draws all of that information in, and it becomes a lot more seamless. And then within the ad manager, when you go to set up your dynamic ad, again, it's very similar to setting up a lot of the other campaigns. You click on the create new campaign, you select your objective, and where the remarketing comes into it is once you're setting your audience, you choose the different options you have. And with the dynamic ads, they do offer quite a lot of automated remarketing audiences based on what people have interacted with on your page, within your Facebook page and within your website. And then one of the options you also have here is to enter the amount of days since that action occurred. So if someone's been to a select site, you can say, okay, cool. If it's been anything more than 14 days, we don't want to talk to them, or 30 days, or 65 days, whatever it is. It does give you a lot more options in terms of talking to people.
Just your experience, does Facebook generally offer more flexibility around targeting with these audiences and the parameters, or do you feel that Google now with the analytics type targeting does kind of give you equal amount of targeting capability?
I think there's a time and place for each one. The one thing that Facebook definitely has in its advantage is that Google stopped allowing you to do is you can upload a set database of email addresses and potential customers that you already have. And this can, again, there's a minimum size to these lists, but being able to upload that, you can then also create lookalike audiences, which Facebook will then target people who have a similar online profile to existing customers you might have. And it does allow you a bit more flexibility there. And so with how people engage with your site, especially with the dynamic ads, it takes away a lot of the setup and a lot of the technicalities that go into it that I was talking about earlier with Google. It does become a lot more, the entry level to it is a bit easier.
So just to reiterate what you just said there for everyone's benefit is that Facebook does give you the ability to upload email lists that you may have secured via months of lead generation, inquiries of people who have come through your website, and you're specifically able to upload those lists and actively retarget those people.
Yeah.
And like you said, you can then set up lookalike lists but off the back of who those individuals are to just grow that sort of viral reach opportunity.
Yes.
Great. So yeah, that sounds like there's a hell of a lot of retargeting and reach and tailoring of audience that you can facilitate with this remarketing capability in the Facebook platform.
The possibilities and the strategies that go into it can get really exciting. And if you think about the different ways you want to talk to your clients and the different messagings you want to use at different points, it becomes really exciting and something that opens up a lot of avenues for you to choose from.
And I think a key point there, Kate, is really just to, before you dive into any of these campaigns, is really to structurally put down a brief and a strategy behind what you're trying to achieve. And almost use a consumer journey, a life cycle journey to plan when you want to implement the different messaging points and the targeting points. Because at the end of the day, that's what, if that's well thought through, that's what will result in more conversions.
The more you know your consumers and how they interact with your brand and with your website, the more tailored you can be, and the better quality you can, and the better service offering you can give them, and the more likely they are to come back and convert.
Great. Okay. All right, awesome. That was a lot of useful insight. Again, just for everyone's benefit, we'll include those step-by-step points with the webinar deck. And again, there are a whole lot of help articles that are in one of the slides that you can also follow from the platforms themselves. Just a reminder about a promo we are running. So, as we've heard with Kate, there's a lot of diversity there in terms of the way you can set these ads up. If you're looking for a partner in terms of prop data to help you out with this, we've got a ton of experience. Kate's heavily involved with the setup of these campaigns, the briefing exercises that go with them. So we've got a lot of insight and market skill. We are offering this 25% off promo. So there are various sort of packages we offer when it comes to Facebook and Instagram. So, we're offering that 25% off the once-off setup fees. And yeah, you can reach out to your existing account manager or just go onto our website and make an inquiry if you're a new customer, and we will come back through to you and discuss your requirements in a bit more detail. But yeah, great promo. Specifically now in lockdown, you're trying to engage with people online as much as possible. I think it would be a great service for you guys to investigate. Just some of the helpful links. You'll notice there's a lot of support articles there from Google and Facebook. So we will disseminate that along with the deck and some of the bullet points that we've highlighted. So I think it's, once you get that, you can review and spend a bit of time understanding a bit more about the process you go through. And we've tried to provide as much help and support as we can, just in terms of pieces of information where we think are the critical bits that you need to get through. So yeah, that's really what we wanted to cover today. We can end off just by talking or answering some of your questions. I noticed there haven't been as many as there were previously. We have got Gay asking a couple of questions. She did ask one, I think, which Kate answered earlier, just with how do we get the Google Analytics snippet code from our prop data website. If you just chat to your account manager, they'll be able to get that for you. All prop data websites that are launched have a Google Analytics tracking code applied to them. So yeah, by all means, just reach out to your account manager and they can supply that to you. If you are wanting to place the Facebook pixel onto your website as well, that's all done through the admin system on your website as well. So again, if you're not too sure about how to do that, please just reach out to to your account manager, and they can help you with that. There's another question here from Gay about how much does it cost to get more exposure on Google search. There are a couple of opportunities there in different campaigns that we do run. From search campaigns, AdWords campaigns, Google display campaigns. So those campaigns all have different cost factors associated to the setup of them, as well as for the ongoing monthly maintenance. We do have examples of pricing on our website, on our packages and pricing page on our website, which do give you sort of base level setup and monthly management fee indications. But we look to review those once we actually have a briefing session with you, the client. So it all depends on what your requirement is, what your business objectives are, how much budget you have, and what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day with the campaign strategy. Just to make you aware that those prices that we quote do exclude the actual ad spend budget. Okay, so those will be fees that Prop Data actually apply to set up and run and maintain and report on the campaign. You obviously will be expected to pay directly to the platforms, Facebook, Google, for the actual ad spend. So the ad spend obviously builds up based on the number of people engaging and clicking on your ads. And Prop Data's job is obviously to get you best bang for your buck. So the more people we can get to engage with your ads for the least amount of money is obviously where our expertise comes in. There's another one that's just been posted here by Caesar. Should we want to try remarketing campaigns on our own? Is there a step-by-step guide? So as I mentioned earlier, on this slide deck, which we will disseminate, there is a whole lot of support articles. I'll just go back to that slide. So literally Google and Facebook have got step-by-step guides. We will also be communicating our own little step-by-step guide, which is more simplistic and high level, which you can also start to play around with. So, I don't think there's any harm for those of you wanting to experience this, to understand it more, to go and potentially set up these campaigns for yourself. Experience what it means, experience what it means to target and reach people in a certain manner. But I think what I will emphasize is that, experience with setting up these and tailoring these campaigns does play a huge part in terms of their effectiveness. There's another question that's just come through. We've been asked our opinion on chatbots. We've got a bit of time, so although it's not directly related, we can discuss that. We've started using sort of live chat and chatbot technologies quite extensively ourselves as Prop Data. I think they're definitely a channel of the future, particularly if you can have skilled people manning live chats. I think we all appreciate that the age of instant gratification is upon us. Consumers want to engage actively with someone there and then. They don't necessarily want to wait a day or two for a lead or an inquiry form to be answered. So I think these are certainly things you should be considering as a real estate professional. They're very cool tools out there. We promote the HubSpot CRM, which comes inbuilt with the live chat and chatbot facility. Those facilities are actually available free on their free CRM tool. And it's just a simple case of us setting up the tracking code on your website to make those kinds of facilities available. So there are definitely pieces of functionality you should be considering. Chatbots become obviously a bit more complex. You have to think about creatively the types of questions and content that people may be engaging with or requesting, and applying the correct logic to provide concise feedback. If you get that wrong, your business doesn't come across as too clever. So I would probably be focusing more on the live chat side, but that does come obviously with the complication that you need someone to manage it. But like I said, the HubSpot tool sets do give you a lot of flexibility around how you configure that live chat, when it's available, who answers when, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, definitely something you should be considering. Let's just move to the poll results. So I'm going to end the poll now. Hopefully all of you have been focusing there. So I'm going to share those all with you. So we asked the question, what's your biggest online marketing challenge? So the majority of you suggested targeting your audience on different platforms. Hopefully what we've discussed today is although two concepts in terms of Google remarketing and Facebook remarketing, the ability to engage on multiple platforms under those two umbrellas. Kate, maybe you can just add a bit more weight behind that particular challenge, and how what we've covered today really addresses some of that.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's important to understand that the different platforms have their different strengths. So even with, like we spoke about the difference between Instagram and Facebook, Facebook and display are quite similar in terms of they've got a much broader reach, and you generally go and pay less for them. But because it's a passive marketing channel, unless you do have a strong remarketing campaign, you're likely to build brand awareness, but it's likely you're going to get a lot of people to your site that might not be as relevant. And then investing your budget in search, which, people are actively looking for the service you provide, you are likely to get a lot more conversions out of that. But if the brand awareness isn't there at the beginning, you don't know how many people are going to be searching for what you're doing, or if you're talking to the right people at the right time. So everything comes into play at different points.
But I think we can safely say that, the two platforms that we've covered today, Facebook and search, give an enormous amount of reach in terms of the potential client audience base that, real estate clients are looking to engage with at the end of the day.
Oh, definitely. Between effectively the three channels we covered, search, display, and Facebook/Instagram, those are always the strongest channels that I'd recommend people look at starting on and focusing their budget on. Those are always going to be your most cost effective and your most predominant channels. The other ones, if you've got the reach and if you've got the budget to be able to spare for it, you can look at, just increasing your awareness and being in more places at one time. But those three that we covered today are definitely your starting blocks.
Okay. The other option that was voted for there is just converting your website visitors. So, I mean, that almost speaks directly to remarketing, because, you've got people to your website, and this remarketing concept is giving you another shot at actually looking to try and convert them in the future.
Well, yeah, we all know, I mean, in this day and age, we all do our research. If we're looking at investing or buying or inquiring about something, we're going to look at a couple of websites, and you basically want to make sure that you're still there while your potential customers are looking at your competitors. You want to make sure you're top of mind, who they come back to. And if your competitors aren't doing that, then you're far more likely to actually bring people back to your site, because then, you get distracted while you're doing your research. So if someone gets distracted, just a little nudge to remind them to come back and inquire.
Yeah. And then just the third option there, running cost-effective ad campaigns. So I think, that really boils down to how, your experience of setting up these campaigns on the various platforms, understanding, the business use cases. And I suppose that we're partnering with a service provider that kind of specializes in these kind of service offerings. It really comes into the fold.
Definitely. I think, with digital media spend, it's one of those things where the barrier to entry is pretty low. Like, anyone can create an account, they can set up the basics of the targeting. But if you want to make sure you're getting the most for your money, because everyone's busy, everyone's got a lot going on right now, and you don't always have the time that you need to be able to invest in it. I always compare it to photography. I can pick up a camera and take a photo, but it's not going to be nearly as good as someone who's got the eye and the experience of a photographer.
Yes. Yeah, that's a great analogy. Okay, cool. So yeah, that kind of brings us to the end of the webinar for today. Hopefully you've all been able to glean a lot from some of that advice and some of the theory that we've covered. Look out for an email that will follow post the webinar. We'll post a link through to the webinar recording so you can review it at your leisure. But if you've got any further questions or queries, if you're a client of PropData, please just come through to your account manager. And if you're looking to engage with us as a first-time client, please just reach out to us either via live chat on our website or via our inquiry forms, and we'll happily discuss some opportunities there with you. Kate, thanks so much for your time today. Your insight has been invaluable, so thank you very much. Hopefully we can get you on one of these in the future. And yeah, thanks to everyone for joining today. Hopefully you've understood a lot and learned a bit more about what remarketing is and how it can be utilized in your various marketing strategies. So thanks very much, and we will see you next time on the next webinar. Keep well.